David here with Figboot on Pens, back again with another stay-at-home fountain pen review. What I have for you today is a brand new pen which was just launched within the last week or so. It is from Schon DSGN and is an all-copper version of the Pocket 6. What I'm going to do today is go over the parts and features of this remarkable pocket pen, talk about what I care for and what I don't care for about it. I'll show some measurements, size comparisons, and provide a writing sample. Thanks go out to Schon DSGN for providing this pen for review. Now, I've previously reviewed a version of this model. If you aren't familiar with Schon DSGN, this is Ian Schon, the man behind the brand. He's based out of Philadelphia, where he has his workshop, and he creates the designs and manufactures the pens himself. He also makes some very cool watches. He's also known for producing an innovative ballpoint pen. Ian has an evident passion for the creation process and creates some very cool items. The pen arrives in this plastic box with some simple instructions on the bottom, and inside we have an ink cartridge and we have the pen. This is the all-copper version of the Schon DSGN Pocket 6. I'll show you later during the size comparisons, but this model has the exact same dimensions as the original Pocket 6, but it is obviously all copper. He's also released an all brass version, and then check this out, there is a hammered metal brass version as well. That just looks outstanding. I love it. In regard to the pen at hand, the copper does give this pen a considerable amount of weight, but the compact nature of the pen really distributes the weight well. The end of the cap is rounded, and the pen is clipless, which I don't mind because this really is meant to be a pocket pen. And the cap is straight. There is a rounded groove in the cap to visually offset the transition between the cap and the barrel. I like the equidistant grooves here. In my opinion, the single cap transition would have just made this pen look a little bit unbalanced. So I feel that this was a good design decision. The barrel is also straight, and then you have the posting threads at the end of the barrel, and the edge of the threads are angled at top, which I feel really helps with the ease of posting this pen, as opposed to an end that was more squared off. The cap unscrews. Now, there is an O-ring on the inside of the cap, which you could sense when capping and uncapping the pen. The O-ring creates a seal, so if ink should ever seep into the cap, it won't leak out of the pen until, of course, you actually remove the cap. Now, between this and my other Pocket 6, I haven't had any issue with this nib leaking at all. Now, a small detail that I really liked about this pen, the O-ring is color coordinated to match the copper. That's a real nice touch, as opposed to having a black O-ring in there. It's small details like that which get me really excited about a pen. I consider it to be a leading indicator. It makes me think if the creator took the time to pay attention to a minute detail like that, it gives me more confidence that they've addressed other potential issues as well. Once you have unscrewed the cap, you'll discover what I think is one of the coolest things about this pen is the number 6 steel JoWo nib, which is why they call this pen the Pocket 6. I'm not aware of any other pocket pens that utilize a number 6. It's a great feature. And this nib is available in extra fine, fine, medium, broad, and then a 1.1 and a 1.5 millimeter stub. Now, the curved section is stock for this pen, but for a little extra you could get this ridged version. The ridged section is slightly longer, so you can see here, in order for the nib to still fit into the cap, it's inset a bit, which gives it a bit of a different look. Now, when Ian sent this pen, he was kind enough to send both sections to me to test out. You could see the size difference here between the two. I thought this was interesting. When I received the pen, both of the sections were the same color. They were raw copper. And while I've tested both of these sections, I've mainly kept this pen capped with the curved one. Due to the ink in the nib, the humidity is slightly higher on the inside of the cap, and you can tell that that portion of the section which was exposed inside the cap has already begun to patina after only a couple of weeks. Over time, the exterior of this pen will patina as well, as long as you don't polish it, and I tend to let my pens patina naturally. Now, you'll want to post this pen while using it, and posting it is simple, and I haven't experienced any issues with like cross-threading or anything like that. I do like that it only takes a single rotation to post the pen. Typically, I'm not a huge fan of twist-to-post pens, especially if you're just jotting down a quick note. It seems like you're twisting off the cap and fumbling around trying to post it and turning it multiple rotations in order to get it on there. It's like getting the pen ready to write took longer than the note I was going to write. So I like that you can get this pen ready for writing quickly and easily. Once it is posted, it's the size of a standard pen. There's nothing pocket about it. And I do find it comfortable in the hand. As I mentioned earlier, this pen does have some heft to it, but I feel the weight is evenly distributed and not uncomfortable, even for longer writing sessions. This is a cartridge-only pen, and that I'll actually go over during the writing sample how you could actually put your own ink or your bottled ink into some of these cartridges, if you haven't done it before. But I was talking about longer writing sessions. I've actually been writing a lot of letters lately. I've been responding to folks who have written me entering the Monteverde Engage contest that ended here recently. A large number of those letters were written with this pen, and I experienced no issues whatsoever. I did test out both sections. For me, I liked the unique look and the inset design of the ridged section, but after writing quite a bit with both, I found the curved to be a little bit more comfortable for my tastes. It wasn't that the ridged was uncomfortable in any way, I just preferred the curved, but I still think the ridged looks cool. The Schon Design Copper Pocket 6 retails for $162 with the curved section and $172 for the longer ridged section. The brass model starts at $142. Then there's that variant of the brass model that I showed you earlier with the hammered treatment that looks fantastic. That specific model goes for around $270. And then for reference, the original Pocket 6 is $118, all of which are available on the Schon Design site, which I'll put a link to in the notes below. I feel the price for each of these models is reasonable, and that, that's as much as you're going to pay for a higher-end Lilliput model from Kaweco, and between the two, I actually prefer the Pocket 6. I like that it's a thicker pen than the Lilliput, and I very much like using the larger nib. So this pen is something I personally enjoy and highly recommend. So now it is time for some measurements, size comparisons. I'll show you how to fill up that cartridge like I mentioned, and a writing sample. Here we go with some size comparisons for the Schon Design Copper Pocket 6. Here it is compared to the original Pocket 6. This one is the anodized aluminum. I just love the coloring on this pen. In regard to a couple of other pocket pens or smaller pens, here it is with the Kaweco Sport, and here it is with the Pilot Prera. In regard to some other pens, here it is with a Sailor Pro Gear Slim, a Diplomat Aero, and then finally here it is with a Namiki Emperor. Now, I don't show this with the Emperor just because it is a very large pen with a small pen, but believe it or not, these pens weigh virtually the same amount. So the Pocket 6 packs a big punch. In regard to some posted comparisons, this is what it looks like with the Kaweco Sport. And then here it is with the Pilot Prera. And finally, here it is with the Pro Gear Slim. Now, I mentioned before that this is a cartridge-only pen, and as you can see here, this cartridge is just about empty. Now, while I don't mind using cartridges, I typically don't buy a lot of cartridges with name brand ink in them, but I do have tons of generic ones laying around. But I like to know what ink is in here. So when I do have to use a cartridge, usually I will empty it out and I'll put in the ink of my choice. And the tool that you use to empty that out is one of these blunt syringes. If you don't have one of these, I would strongly recommend it. It is a tool that you will get a lot of use out of when you are cleaning your pens and servicing them as well. What you want to do First of all is when you have a full cartridge, you want to go ahead and pierce the end of that cartridge. You can do so with the end of this syringe. And then you could use the syringe to actually pull out the existing generic ink that's in there, as well as in a sink, force some water in there to totally clean it out. And then once you have done so, you can take the ink of your choice and then use the syringe. And I usually do this right over the bottle because there is a little bit of bubbling. You go ahead and insert this, and I would do this very slowly since it does force some air out. But if you do it slowly enough, you can see some of those bubbles forcing out. There. And then I put the extra back into the ink bottle and put that away. And now we have a cartridge full of the ink of our choice. So here we have the Schon design. And that's how you spell design, DSGN. And this is the copper Pocket 6. And this is a medium stainless steel nib. And the ink that I'm using today is Diamine Ancient Copper. I thought it was a nice match for this pen. This is what the ink looks like. It's one of my favorite browns. It's kind of a reddish brown, something similar to Papier Plume's 11, which has a little bit more shading to it. And here's what it looks like with Bungbox Piano Mahogany, which I would call a brownish red as opposed to a reddish brown. But all three of these are really nice inks. And then this is what the ink bottle looks like. This is their 80 milliliter bottle, which is fantastic. And here we go with the rest of the writing sample. I find this medium JoWo nib to be very pleasant. You're not going to get a lot of line variation out of here. If you push it, you can get some. But I do find that the ink flow is decent on this medium nib. And in regard to reverse writing, it is a little bit scratchy, but in regard to some fast writing, there's no issue with the feed keeping up at all. So here we have the Schon Design Copper Pocket 6. As someone who doesn't typically like a lot of pocket pens, I really enjoyed this one. It has a nice size to it. I love writing with the number 6 nib, and it just has a high cool factor, which I really enjoy. And then on top of that, it performs well. So until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.